Welcome to the September 11th, 2017 meeting of the Marquette City Commission. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please rise with me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, could we have the roll call, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Combenzi, Commissioner Conley,
Here.
Commissioner Frazier,
Here.
Commissioner Plord,
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds, Mayor Pro Tem Baldini,
Here.
Mayor Campana.
Here. We have two commissioners absent. Could we have a motion to excuse, please? Commissioner Baldini?
I move that we excuse Commissioner Benzie and Commissioner Reynolds. They're both out of town.
Could I have a second on that, please? Commissioner Frazier?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed? That carries 5-0. Commissioners, in front of you, you have the agenda. Would someone care to make a motion to accept the agenda? Commissioner Frazier.
I make a motion to support the agenda as written.
Is there a second? Commissioner Plord?
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That carries 5-0. Announcements. We come to announcements. Today is 9/11. It's the anniversary of that horrible terrorist attack in 2001 that killed nearly 3,000 of our citizens. Out of respect to the victims, could we please have a moment of silence? Thank you. One other announcement. There will be an electronic waste take back at Lakeview Arena on Tuesday, September 19th from 3 to 7. So if you got old TVs, old electronic equipment, that would be the time to get rid of it. So mark it on your calendars, take advantage of that situation. Next we come to boards and committees. Tonight we're going to welcome 3 new members, and I will go to the podium to do this. We have Aaron Andes here, and if you could come this way, and Tim Tebby and Matt Tuccini. Could I have you all come here, please? You guys want to stand right here? Okay, Aaron is being named to the Land Development Code Advisory Committee. Aaron is currently serving on our planning commission, so he's doing double duty for us, and he's helping the city out very much. Tim Tebby is going to volunteer to be on the Traffic Parking Advisory Committee. Matt Tuccini is going to be on the Marquette Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. Aaron, you already have a pin. I'll be glad to give you another one if you need one. You're good? Okay. Gentlemen, this is the official Marquette pin. I'm going to give it to you. Wear it proudly when you can. It signifies that you're volunteering for the city, and we appreciate all that you're doing. Everything you do helps to make the city a better place. So again, welcome, thank you. Welcome, thank you. Welcome and thank you. We need 2 oaths to be given.
Yep, Aaron's taken his, so.
Chris will do this.
I, J. Matthew Tuccini, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter of the City of Marquette, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Marquette Brownfield Redevelopment Authority of the City of Marquette according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Welcome. Thank you. Give me a signature here. And then you can keep it.
I, Timothy Tebby, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, the Charter of the City of Marquette, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Traffic and Parking Advisory Committee of the City of Marquette according to the best of my ability. So help me God.
Thank you. Welcome. You can give me a couple of signatures here, too. One for your record.
Gentlemen, thank you for volunteering. Appreciate it. Next, we move to recognition of an outgoing member. That person is Rich Rossway of the Marquette Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. Unfortunately, Rich is not here tonight. He is the president of the school board, and he has a meeting as we are speaking. If he shows up, we'll work him in. Next, we have appointments. I have two appointments tonight. The first is Dax Richer to the Land Development Code Advisory Committee for a term ending 9/5/2018. And the second is for James Suxey to the Land Development Code Advisory Committee for a term ending 9/5/2018. Do you have a motion to accept these two gentlemen, please? Is there a motion? Commissioner Plord.
I move that we appoint Dax Richer to the Land Development Code Advisory Committee for a term ending 9/5/18, and James Suxey, Land Development Code Advisory Committee for a term ending 9/5/18.
Is there a second? Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? That carries 5-0. Next, we come to public hearings. We have two public hearings tonight. First public hearing is Budget and General Appropriations Act for the fiscal year 2018. City Clerk, if we could have the background, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Background. The City Commission held budget hearings on August 16th, 21st, 23rd, and 30th, 2017. Tonight, a public hearing is scheduled to receive public comment on the proposed fiscal year 2018 budget. Following this input, the Commission should consider any changes it wishes to make to the budget. Changes are as noted. One, an additional $20,000 is to be given from the city's general fund state revenue sharing to the Peter White Library. The total of this contribution will now be $40,000. Two, the municipal services fund, the reserve, will be reduced by $34,000 to accommodate the purchase of office furniture. Fiscal effect, a balanced budget has been presented. Recommendation, following the public hearing, adopt fiscal year 2018 budget and General Appropriations Act. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to open this public hearing. This is the opportunity for citizens, residents to address the Commission on this particular item. You have 3 minutes. We would need you, and if you would address us at this podium in front of me, we would need your name, home address, city or township. Does anyone wish to address the Commission on this item? Anyone? Seeing none, we're going to close this public hearing. Go to the Commission. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Baldini?
I move that we adopt the fiscal 2018 budget and General Appropriation Act as presented.
Would there be a second? Commissioner Conley?
Second.
Any comments?
Just comments that, first I want to thank the staff. We held 4 or 5 work sessions in great length, met with the staff. They reviewed their appropriation for their department, explained what they were doing, why there were changes, things of that nature. And we did add on as an add-on item over the staff, not because the staff was necessarily opposed, but as it says here, we added $20,000 more to Peter White to help them through their difficult times. And it should also be noted that our fees for water and sewers are the same as last year. And the city manager did, however, say that based upon what we may see from Johnson Control, he may have to come in for a budget amendment. We're hoping that's not going to happen, but just to alert people to that. It's a good budget. It's a little tight, but it's balanced, okay? Thank you.
Commissioner Conley, anything?
I'd like to thank our Chief Financial Officer, Gary Simpson, who, with his staff, worked a tremendous amount of time, put in a lot of effort to get this budget. It's a lot of work just reading it, but Gary knew it cold. So I'd like to thank him and the city manager for presenting this budget, and I really don't know how you balance it. But thank you for doing that. So thank you for all the work. It really is appreciated. The more we look through all those line items and just see you lost, late at night and in a sea of spreadsheets, it's impressive. So thanks again.
Commissioner Plord.
I also want to thank Gary Simpson and the staff, the city manager's office, and everybody around, because they really do know their numbers. They know where the money's at, they know where it's going to, and they answered every question we had. And when Mayor Campana talks about long hours, yeah, we put a lot of questions to pretty much everybody, and they had answers. Just to let people know, in case you're not aware, you can find the budget on the city website, new city website, marquettemi.com. It's there. You can take a good look at it. It's a well-balanced budget, and I'm very satisfied with it.
MarquetteMI.gov.
I'm sorry. Thank you. It's marquettemi.gov.
Thank you.
I think actually we can use either .gov or .com, right? Is that or Sean? No. Anyway, if you go to marquettemi.gov, you'll find it.
I also would like to thank city staff and Mr. Simpson, because this is a lot of work to get this done, and it's very important for the city. And it was mentioned by Commissioner Baldini, this is a balanced budget. We didn't have to reduce any spending, and there's been a couple years where we actually had to reduce spending. This year we didn't have to do that. Everything balances. Good things like having the Brownfield Act and the Johnson Controls Energy Savings Program are bringing in, we're going to have better projects. We're going to be able to, along with savings from those two programs, you're going to see more roads, more infrastructure than we normally have. And this is a good thing for the citizens. And on top of this, the auditors say we're in good shape and we have good bond ratings. So the city is in a good financial shape at this point. Okay, do you want a roll call?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote. City Clerk?
Commissioner Conley,
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier,
Yes.
Commissioner Plord,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baldini,
Yes.
Mayor Campana.
Yes. That passes 5-0. Our next public hearing of the evening is a public hearing for condominium subdivision plan. City Clerk, if we could have the background, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Background. The Landing Development Group 2 LLC is requesting a condominium subdivision to be called Marquette Place Condominiums, and that is proposed to have 7 individual units located at 401 South Lakeshore Boulevard. The subdivision ordinance specifies a 2-step plan approval process for preliminary and final plans. The Planning Commission must first review the preliminary plan and either reject, approve with conditions, or approve the plan as presented. If approved, the preliminary plan is then forwarded to the City Commission for consideration. Approval of the preliminary condominium subdivision plan confers upon the developer the right to prepare a condominium master deed and a final plan for the project. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the request on August 15, 2017, and made the following motion. It was moved by Jay Carlson, seconded by P. Schlegel, and carried 6-0 that after review of the condominium plan for Marquette Place condominiums and the staff file review analysis for 02 CST 0817, the Planning Commission finds substantial compliance with the City of Marquette subdivision and zoning ordinance, and hereby recommends that the City Commission approves the site plan with the following conditions: that an amended site plan is submitted to meet staff comments, and only after staff verifies that the revised plan meets staff comments will staff advance the site plan to the City Commission for their review. And that all structures or expansions indicated on this site plan that were not reviewed under case number 20-SPR-11-16 cannot be constructed until they receive site plan review approval, and this CSD request does not grant approval for proposed construction. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, conduct a public hearing on the proposed condominium subdivision and approve that request. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to open the public hearing on this item. Again, it's an opportunity for anyone to address the commission. You got 3 minutes. Name, home address, city or township.
Barry Polson, 101 North Lakeshore Boulevard, Marquette. Here representing and part of Landing Development Group 2. I guess I just want to clarify what this is. This is creating volumes, taking the site next to the Hampton Inn, where we're building the parking structure, creating volumes in which buildings can be built. So these aren't the actual buildings, and that's what the recommendation refers to, that the actual building plans still have to go through the normal zoning approval process. This is just setting up a way to identify 7 unique pieces of real estate within this condominium association on the site. So these are volumes. There's a defined footprint, a defined elevation at the bottom, and a defined elevation at the top. Those volumes are in compliance with the form-based code which is in place. So that's all this is. It's just creating those air volume units. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have during discussion.
Fine, thank you. Would anyone else wish to address the commission?
Frank Jeff Verito, 350 East Ridge Street, Marquette. These are my opinions. Tonight's proposal to allow 7 condominiums at 401 South Lakeshore is further reminiscent of our Flounders letdown. This board and the public may find it surprising that this time the trouble is not overdevelopment, but not enough development. The map and images in the agenda packet clearly depict the parcel that's under construction, but the description led one to assume that the 7 units are proposed in a separate building for which no site plans appeared in tonight's packet. These units, we learned only after expending time, are encompassed in the existing structure. Regardless of the above confusion, for 18 years our boards and public alike had agreed on a high-density development cluster to provide a smooth transition from the lake to downtown. This included a myriad of shops on the first floors with a good number of offices and far more than 7 living units in the upper floors. 1 or 2 standalone buildings with a cafe doesn't accomplish that, nor fulfill the promises to our public. Instead, you're further relinquishing our lakeshore to a privileged few. As are the cases with the Commons, Lakeshore site, and other aspects of Flounders, we're ending up with less than what this board originally hyped. Phase 1 at Lakeshore site, for example, was to renovate the 2 historic buildings in the galleries, retail, and loft apartments. Now the buildings are being raised with no explanation for the lies we were told in 1997. December 19, 2016, most of us only saw the Founders building design for the first time. Ms. Compenzi admitted that this isn't what we'd planned, but that it fits, although I feel only marketing and architecturally wise, not from the standpoint of wise lakeshore use. The exterior looks appropriate for the location. The problem is you're giving our lakeshore to the rich. This said regardless of the boardwalk, piers, and patio. All the condominiums are high-end, as is the proposed restaurant. Mr. Frazier is thanked for recommending a gift shop, anything the public can enjoy inside the building to minimize our letdown that the development will not provide the smooth transition from shore to downtown, as proposed for years by the same architect, I believe. This architect has a way of dictating what goes on here, such as June 13, 2016, when he built the patio prior to approval, as if he wasn't aware of the rules ahead of time. Then there's January 8, 2017, when he was given the okay to place footings for his parking garage under public property. He's never been asked to explain how this smooth commercial transition from lake to downtown ended up as a condominium structure for the rich. We've seen this board simply buy into whatever he dictates.
Would anyone else care to address the commission? Anyone else? Seeing none, we're going to close this public hearing. Excuse me, Commissioner Conley, did you have a question? for
Just a quick question for the developers. Was this going to be, and I don't care about this, this is your business plan. Was this originally going to be rentals and now it's a condominium?
Let's not get hung up on the word condominium. And that is simply a way of owning real estate. It's a way of defining a piece of real estate. Now, the uses of the buildings have nothing to do with this condominium association. The first building, which is Unit 2 in this plan, is a large volume. Within that volume, we're building one Marquette Place, which has been approved, gone through the zoning approval. That is a cafe, office, and 64 rental housing units, okay? There will be, in the future phases, additional residential units. There will be commercial space on the street front. There will also be office, and there will be some private residential, only a handful. Most of this will be rental housing. So the uses go on inside of these volumes. So we still have to develop the actual buildings that will be built within these volumes. So this is just approving, dividing the air, if you will, into these separate volumes.
I'm glad I asked the question because that allowed you to clarify what this is, what this means, because I didn't understand the condominium concept. Thank you.
Yeah, condominium is often associated with a residence, but it's just a form of ownership. It's just an entity.
Great. That lays it out for me. Thank you, Barry.
Okay, commissioners, do I have a motion? Commissioner Baldini.
I would like to move to approve the Landing Development Group 2 LLC condominium subdivision preliminary plan.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Plard.
Second.
Any comments, Commissioner Baldini?
I think this has been part of the ongoing process of developing that entire area, and Barry Polson explained this part of the process and how it's going to fit in. He still has to come back to the Planning Commission and it will come back eventually at some point to the Commission for our approval. I don't know what the timeline is on that, but there still is those periods of time and evaluation by our staff prior to it being finally constructed. So,
Commissioner Plard.
I think it's also important to note that the Planning Commission has done a lot of research on this. I think they've completely vetted what the plans are, what's going to happen, and they approve it. We didn't get it until they've really looked at it entirely back and forth. I'm sure Mr. Polson has had to talk to the Planning Commission on several different occasions to explain what he's talking, what he's planning. So, having full confidence in the Planning Commission, I think that's why I support this.
Commissioner Frazier.
Yeah, for Commissioner Plard, the Planning Commission already approved all this. They went through all the nuts and bolts. They dotted the I's, crossed the T's. I think, ours is the final step for, a commission to approve it. I think it's a good idea, and I think it's supposed to be a well-developed building. The footprint that's there now, as Barry said, supposed to be that's going to be the main building with just the restaurant, possibly the cafe, maybe a gift shop. He's also said there's possibility of possibly adding, the city's talked about redoing the old piers there for possible transient boats, and there's possibility of maybe allowing boats to come up, park, and go have lunch or dinner or wherever they want. And I think that's a great idea because it's very popular in the southern states and other places that have riverfront. But the only other place in the UP that has that access would be Munising. You still have to walk uptown. It's not right at the restaurant, but to have a dock where you can park your boat and walk up to the restaurant is a great idea for visiting boats or whatever. So I think it's a great idea.
And I believe this development, what you're going to make in the front of your development, is open to the public, free to the public, so it's a public benefit. So the city benefits from that. Okay, we'll vote on this. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? That carries 5-0. Next, we come to presentations for the evening. We have two presentations. The first presentation will be the Marquette Board of Light and Power update. We have Chair Tom Tourville, former mayor, will be leading us on this.
Well, Thank you for having me. My purpose here tonight is to give you a brief summary of some recent BLP topics and to invite you to a joint work session where we can share with you more of the pertinent details of these topics and how they fold into our long-term financial planning at the BLP. I forced myself to take notes so I would stay on task. We'll see if that happens. Starting off yesterday, 2 BLP trucks and 4 journeyman linemen left yesterday for Florida for mutual aid support. We'll see when they come back. I'm sure they want to get back by deer season, if nothing else, but they're down there. They should be down there pretty shortly. The topics I'm going to start talking about, we'll start off with the community solar garden. This project is essentially complete. All 480 panels are installed. They should be online this week. Of the 480 panels, 317 are currently bought and paid for. And this project is an opportunity for anyone within our 16,500 customer service area, which is the city of Marquette and all are part of 9 surrounding townships, to participate in locally produced, clean, renewable energy without having to put it on their rooftops. The price is $499 per panel. We've structured the purchase agreement to help facilitate it, complying for the 30% tax credit. And the way this works is people who then buy these panels, or businesses or organizations, then on your monthly BLP bill, there will be a credit applied to your bill for the amount of electricity that your panels prorated have produced, from that. So it's essentially done. There, for people that ask the numbers, the 480 panels, they're 320 watts per panel for anyone who happens to care about that sort of thing. And information, you can call the BLP or go to the website. Anyone who's interested can do that. This project, as an aside, will be roughly $270,000 to $300,000 total, which will bring an additional roughly $6,000, I think, of additional annual property tax revenue to the city. It's a small number, but every dollar of income is a good dollar, so that's helpful. In fact, with that type of money, $6,000 per year additional, maybe the city commission should consider taking some of that and buying some panels. You'll get more than your rate of return back the very first year. I guess I already went off topic. I'll get back to my script here. The second topic, Marquette Energy Center, was recently completed, pretty much on schedule, and our budgeted number of $65.3 million, final costs came in at $62.5 million. So roughly $3 million below budget, which is good news. That's ratepayer money. So the 3 generators that are installed, they'll provide an additional total 50 megawatts of capacity for our area. And the beauty of these, of course, is they can come online in 2 minutes and reach full load within 5 minutes. And they're definitely going to provide us with new opportunities that the BLP has never had before for staging our assets, controlling our power supply costs, and in purchasing power from the grid as well as selling some power to the grid. As an aside, this project at the $65 million, $62.5 million, this is going to be providing an additional $1.4 million in property tax revenue annually to the city of Marquette. And I realize that doesn't hold up much of a candle to the Lhasa Prescal power plant. We're small potatoes compared to them. But again, additional revenue that was not there before. The bonds that we applied for, prior to applying at the credit agencies and going through our interviews, and the bond process and going to bond market, we had projected a cost of 4% interest rate, and we had projected a total borrowing bonds totaling $77 million. When all was said and done, we went to the bond market. We had a strong A rating from both Fitch and Standard & Poor's. Our timing was lucky. I'll be first to say that, but our timing was good. And instead of coming in at 4%, we came in at 2.998, call it 3%, which is big. It's a big difference. So our bonds came in less expensive than we thought. And also, instead of borrowing 77 million, we needed 67 million. So again, differences to positive, impact now that this is all said and done. Going further, last fall, we hired our financial consultant, UFS, who has done work for us for many, many years, to help guide us using industry best practices in developing 3 financial long-term policies: a cash reserve policy, an operating income policy, and a debt coverage policy. And these are important. These really help guide the utility for long-term. And specifically, these policies that we adopted, for example, the operating income policy, for starters, that helps us comply with the charter requirements in the first place of making sure that we fully fund our expenses, fully fund our depreciation, the increases on the assets we invested, funding a proper rate of return. For us as a nonprofit, it's a break-even rate of return. And this also leads to more stabilized rates. The other policies we did is cash reserve policy. That's to ensure financial stability. Pay your expenses, obviously. It helps establish the timely completion of capital improvements, meets requirements for large unexpected expenditures, which in our world, the Board of Light and Power, it's infrastructure intensive, huge capital intensive. Things are huge dollars, and that's not unique. You guys have the same thing with your water and your sewer. And when things break, they're expensive, and you have to be financially prepared for that. The final debt coverage policy, that's really making sure that we cover ourselves with the minimum debt ratios that are required so that we're financially stable, part of our bond requirements as well. So we adopted these policies. They're long-term policies, and when we meet, hopefully for the joint work session, we'd like to share with you some more of the details with this. That was last fall. This spring, we hired the consulting firm of Burns & McDonnell to help us put together, this is to me is totally unique, a 20-year modeling of our power supply, power purchase analysis for the next 20 years. Burns & McDonnell, they're a top 5 consulting firm in the U.S. They're not just generation consultants, they're also transmission consultants. These are industry experts. It was not an inexpensive study, but it was money well spent. That study came back, and what Burns & Mac did, they evaluated the changing conditions in the UP grid, and the inclusion of the Marquette Energy Center into that generation portfolio. And again, the key here, the underlying theme is that the addition of these natural gas dual fuel engines really give us new opportunities that we've never had before in providing the utmost of reliability at our lowest possible cost. What Burns & Mac did, they modeled the economics of our generation portfolio over a study period of the next 20 years. Mr. Gary Simpson would love this. It's spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet just to make your brain spin. And key with this, they included a variety of operating scenarios and options for us to consider, both with Shiras Unit 3 coal plant and without. And they calculated the cost, the 20-year cost for the Board of Light and Power to operate under these scenarios and conditions. So we literally had a 3x3 grid of these choices to look at for costs. Then that study was completed. Then we gave this to our financial consultant, UFS, to do a 5-year financial projection and 5-year rate study going forward, incorporating all of this power supply analysis numbers. That was just completed 2 weeks ago. And with that, UFS compared scenarios, financial scenarios with Unit 3 and without. With the rate studies, this segues quite nicely actually to our electric rates. As you all know, October of 2016 was the huge lift, 30% rate increase. We're coming up on October of 17. Our final budget meeting is tomorrow night. Our budget for 2017 to 18 is 0, no rate increase. And I'm very happy and relieved actually to say that we're on a path for October of 18, a year from now, for that budget to be at another 0 rate increase. Again, the ability to do long-term financial planning, the ability to take our resources and really go on our strengths of what we have is key for this. So kind of the bottom line with this, where we stand today, when you fold in our long-term financial policies that we started last fall, when you fold in the power supply analysis study and our UFS rate study, bottom line, honestly, long-term, continuing to burn coal is not strategically or economically in the best interests of the BLP or our ratepayers. That's really where we're headed to long-term. And I'll finish, I think I even beat my time limit. I'll finish by requesting again, we want to invite you to a work session to share a lot of the pertinent details with us and go over all these things where we are. We would ask that you consider October 10th as the date. You got to start somewhere. And you pick the time of day and you pick the place. We can come here, you can go to our place, it doesn't matter. But I think it'd be well worth our time for us to share with you and provide a lot of this financial data, a lot of what we're doing and what we're considering for our long-term paths, because I think it dovetails then into also the city's long-term planning. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Frazier?
How did the other, Mr. Trevor, how did the other power plants they built, they copied you by building the other two power plants? They're going to shut down possibly Presque Isle Power Plant. And so We Energy built the other two power plants out in the boonies to supplement for the loss of the steam plant there. How is that going to help you with, if you had to get power from the grid? Would that help stabilize the grid?
That's going to help us. Yeah, the new generating plants that We Energy, or the new name that's building the 7 generators in Nagani Township and the 3 in Baraga, that does nothing but help all of us. Even in the minor way of by happenstance, that company chose not just the same manufacturer but same model of engines that we're using. And so now with that, the generator company, Wärtsilä, is looking at, from their side, the feasibility of establishing a supply department up here in this area. But that's a minor deal, but the punchline is, yes, that helps ensure the long-term viability of the whole region with those natural gas plants that are coming on.
So do they give you part of their money if they make all the money off it? Say, okay, well, you started it, they give you a couple bucks, and if you close Ferris Steam Plant down, would there be a possibility of adding like one or two more of those engines to supplement for Unit 3 being gone, or?
Well, the beauty of the power supply analysis, and we'd love to show you this stuff that Burns and McDonald's did, it shows that the analysis does 3 different what ifs. What if over the next 20 years natural gas prices are what we predict? What if they're high? What if they're low? It's all mapped out. What if the load, here's what your question is, what if the load over the next 20 years is just flat? What if the load actually decreases? What does it increase? And what is the capability of your generating assets for that? The punchline with this is our new generating center, without our coal plant, still has enough capacity to accommodate that. And in all these scenarios, you say, well, what if there's some unexpected huge entity that comes in and is really looking for, really is huge load that we would have never envisioned? Yes, we are structured. We could adapt that. We could handle that. But my message tonight is not to spell gloom and doom that the sky is falling, Shiras is closing. Long term, I really feel the direction our board is headed. When you look at everything, even the environmental, as an example, when you look at the emissions that Shiras, Shiras is a relatively clean coal plant as coal plants go. Over last year, 2016, Shiras emitted 398,000 tons of CO2. That same output, had it been our natural gas generators, would have been 1/2 of that. Nitrous oxide, which is a real bad thing. Shiras had 374 tons during that year. At the Energy Center, it would have been 56 tons, an 85% reduction. Sulfur dioxide, SO2. Coal plant, 244 tons of sulfur dioxide emitted into the air over the year. Energy center, less than 3, a 99% reduction. Granted, natural gas isn't clean, okay? It's not gonna beat solar, it's not gonna beat wind, but it's a hell of a lot cleaner than coal. That's not a primary reason of this, but everything falls in the same place. When you look at strategically, do we need our coal plants over the next 20 years with the changes that's going on, and economically, you can have them. Unit 3 has 20 years of life left in it, it sure does. But when you map out what these studies, what it's gonna cost you for this 34-year-old coal plant to live till it's 54, the costs to maintain that don't go up steadily, they go up exponentially. So it's the increasing costs of why long-term coal, I mean, look, the plants that are closing in Lower Michigan, that's not just because of federal laws or whatever. I mean, it's economics as well. So when you look at that, that brings you into strategies of how do you best take care of your utility and your ratepayers. So with that, if we go down that path, we'll obviously be folding in, okay, how do you retire? I mean, Unit 1's been retired for a long time. Unit 2 we retired last fall. And Unit 3, what I'm saying is the long-term picture, we do not see that being a key piece that's going to benefit our ratepayers, or the utility. So that's just its long-term.
I think with your panel idea, we should get all retired, the city manager to pass some law or motion, all retired mayors have to buy a panel. Retired mayor panel city. That'd be the way out. What do you think, manager, do that? We would exclude Dave, like he's still on board, but we'll say all retired mayors have to buy a panel.
Well, I've done mine. So,
Commissioner Baldini.
Thank you, Tom. It's, matter of fact, good news. I mean, I was like when you get bonds at 2.9 rather than 4 and borrow a lot less money. And I think it's encouraging because I remember some years ago you were having a real cash reserve policy crisis.
yes.
And it's only sound economics and wise investing to, plan for that, what you might need. And I think I like the idea of a work session. I don't know if the date works out, and that's something our city manager Angeli can work on. But because I'd especially be interested in hearing about a couple of things you mentioned here. When this proposal came before us a couple of years ago, two things were really stressed. Was that we were never going to be connected to the grid, and therefore we had to go and build these 3 units. And now you're talking about being connected to the grid, so something must have changed someplace.
What this does is, with coal plant is like a wood sauna stove. It just runs. It's not designed to change much. Coal is even worse. It takes 10, 11, 12 hours for a coal plant to come online, and when it breaks, it takes about that much time to cool down to work on it. So we've never had the ability in the past to turn our coal plant off, if you will, and buy from the grid when the price is cheaper. Quite often, on a regular basis, the costs on the grid can be less than what you can make locally. But if you care about reliability, and when you buy power, you're buying reliability. That's what those generators provide us. And with the quick start ability of these natural gas reciprocating engines, they can literally do that. Part of this planning with Burns and McDonald over this long haul incorporates phases of time when we're going to be buying power from the grid in short time intervals, when it's going to benefit us. Whereas before this, you couldn't. Before, typically the BLP would buy 10% of our power from the grid each year. We'd make 90%. But we bought that 10% not by planned. We bought it when our stuff broke. When our coal plant would blow a boiler tube, you bought from the grid. Yes, when you shut it down every spring for 10 days, you bought from the grid. So our purchases from the grid, like the stock market, where when we bought it was whatever the price was. So that's a key with this, is it gives us that ability. Plus, maybe more to your point too, is as we look forward now with the data that we have and the costs that we have, that slowly the world around us, if you will, in the UP, with the addition of the natural gas generators coming in Negaunee Township, and I think, I could be wrong on this, but somewhere around 2020, I think ATC, there is going to be some additional improvements coming up here, and the 42-mile Semco line that's coming up from Ralph up this way when that happens. Those are reliability improvements that we didn't
One
have
of the
back then.
points, and this is why I think a work session would be helpful, is that one of the big selling points for the last bond proposal is there was no way we could ever be connected to the grid or to MISO. I mean, that was sold, and I even went back and checked my old notes on that. So I never believed that, to be honest, candid about it. So this is going to help us probably at this point, but
Sure.
that was one of the selling points for that project at the time. And the other point was that Shirus 3 was going to be around for a while, and you indicated it probably still will be with us for some time, because these were going to be backups for Shirus 3. 1 and 2 you said were gone, 1 was gone and 2 was gone. And then also in checking my old notes, I think there was something like a $32 million price tag to decommission the whole site down there. That's a lot of bake sales. And so it probably behooves us to have a work session.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Thank you. But good news on no rate increase, and, no rate increase and cheaper money.
Commissioner Conley.
So is the Marquette Energy Center fully operational? Could you put out 50 megawatts
Yes.
tomorrow?
Yep.
So, and the gas supply that you have now guaranteed for the Marquette Energy Center,
Our
how
contract.
many engines can you run off your gas supply that you have?
Our firm contract that we purchased, for firm gas, they call that in decatherms, which is something that we don't even talk about. I mean, it's quantity
Kind
of
of
gas.
like kilopascals for pressure, yes.
It's a whole different language. But what it means my takeaway is that for 7 months of the year, essentially we're guaranteed firm natural gas. We can run all 3 engines, guaranteed. For the remaining 5 months of the year, we are guaranteed, firm, no exceptions, that we can run 1 of the engines full-time. When you take a step back from that and then look into this, and we had a presentation by the gas company several months ago about this, when you take a step back and look at where they are, their capability, you say, well, that means you can't run all 3 in the winter. They ran some numbers, some models, and it turns out, yes, we can't guarantee you firm gas for 3 out in winter, but with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 days during the winter total, the most hazardous conditions you can model with severe adverse temperatures and stuff, with the exception of those 3 or 4 days, there's enough gas for you. And this is before you talk about the pipeline being extended up from Ralph.
And in that case, you would run fuel oil.
Yeah, fuel oil, sure.
But so they tell you which months, they tell you get 7 months guaranteed. Do they tell you ahead of time which 7 months?
They told us, the dates. It's, you know the months. It's the spring through fall. Yeah.
That they guarantee?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like March 1 or April 1 through whatever, and it's 7 months.
All right. What's the payback period for the solar panels?
15 to 20 years. I mean, admittedly, if you want to, some people ask, well, hey, this is an investment. I say, no, it's not an investment. No, it's a way for you to participate in locally produced renewable energy. Yes, you'll get payback within 15 to 20 years, and if your goal is to get faster payback with your money, then invest it someplace. That's not the whole
that was
purpose.
my thought too, and requiring particularly retired mayors to buy it, there's no payback there. I mean, there's some of us that debate buying green bananas, and whether there's any economic return in that. This is certainly a hearing about the possibility of the closure of Shirus Steam Plant. Is a sea change from 2 years ago when you came to us and said, no, we need this for reliability. We don't have the grid. You know, the Shirus plant could go down, and now you're coming back to us. And we're going to have to really consider this, because this is 180 degrees from what you told us 2 years ago.
That's one reason for the work session, is to show you how all these things fold together, and I'm purposely overstating, the shutdown word. I mean, yes, it would be retired just like Unit 2 is retired and stuff. The facility would stay there behind the scenes, there's studies that we're going to be looking at to analyze what's the cost of parking it, pickling it, mothballing it to where it could be used at a future date if needed, kind of thing. So it's not going to be, we're recommending anywhere at all that the whole thing's going to be torn down. It's just, we want to be open and transparent and saying, with the information we have now, we can still keep Unit 3, but here's what the new costs, here's what the costs are going to be associated with that. And if, in one way you can, it's okay, ratepayers, if this is a scenario you want, for instance, comparing during the 5-year analysis, the option with Unit 3 or without Unit 3 in the mix, there's a $30 million cost difference between the two, as one of the numbers that I can remember. Is however you want to look at the money. You say, well, I can save $30 million or pay more. Comparing those two scenarios with Shirus in the mix and without Shirus, the Shirus cost is $30 million more in costs, or MEC is $30 million less, whatever. Everything's relative to how you're comparing it. But so those are real dollars, and especially when you look at the likelihood of how much is going to continue to age, now that it's, that.
Well, we were assuming that actually that aging process would slow down, that Shirus would go from a 20-year life to a 40-year life. That's what we heard here at this table within the last 2 years. So this discussion underscores the need for this city to pass an ordinance that regulates the closure of coal-fired power plants, and that also covers mothballing plants that aren't technically closed. Kind of like the Empire Mine isn't closed, it's just kind of in suspension. We as a city, we can't have 2 down power plants dead on our shores and being told that no, they're not closed, or they aren't putting out power right now, but we can turn them on. We need an ordinance. Other communities in the state of Michigan, other communities in Wisconsin have come out with such ordinances. We need one, and we need it before these places start closing, because it's going to be too late if these are dead on the water, not in the water. So I hope that we will start working on that soon. I just one comment: there aren't too many places in the country that you can give the wood sauna stove analogy and have it understood. Thank you for coming. We're looking forward to the work session.
Yeah, thank you. Good comments.
Tom, do you think that 51 megawatts generated by the 3 new engines is enough to run the city
Yes.
at its worst time?
Yep.
I thought that, at a maximum draw, they took 60-some.
Our peak, half a forever ago, 1 September, 1 year, was 68. And again, when you look at the powers that these studies, and they go back in time as well as forward in time, and where we are today, that capacity that we have, it will be just fine. So it's and across the country, I mean, pretty much everybody understands the fact that megawatt consumption is on a slow, steady decline. It's just the nature of the beast, and for emergency backup, if you will, I mean, our natural gas generators are our main resource. Our hydros are only about 4 megawatts, that's small. The solar community project, yes, that's very small. We still have our combustion turbine engine that's out near Prescott Power Plant that's in very good condition. That's a 25 megawatt resource. However, being 30 years old, it's in great shape, but it's that technology from 30 years old, and its combustion turbine. It was run steadily during the flood. It runs well, but it's extremely inefficient, is one way of saying it. It uses, when it runs full bore, it uses something like 52,000 gallons of diesel a day. So that's what you run in your last resort that are going to keep your lights on. If we were Valdosta, Georgia right now, or some other city down there in Georgia or Florida, that's what we'd be running if that's all you had left to keep something going,
Do you plan to keep the coal plant upgraded to meet federal regulations?
That's going to be a good question. That's going to be a decision point we're going to be having next year, because what's already on the books, regardless, it's already happened, it's been enacted, and it's in the, you know, the EPA rules. For instance, there's some new environmental regulations that have deadlines of next October. One example would be at Shiras, we have our ponds, ash settling ponds. We've had them forever. There's some new environmental rules that change the standards on those. And so now the new standards require us to do something different. And so that's roughly a $5 million capital project. You comply, you spend that $5 million, and now you're in compliance with that regulation. There's also some regulation that's part of it. I'll get this one wrong, so forgive me for not knowing the details, but our hot pond, there's some rules that have changed with that. There's something we have to do different. So in our planning, and this is one more reason for the work session, we want to share with you, here's the parameters we're looking at, because if we go down a path to essentially mothball our coal or keep it in the mix, here's what's behind the scenes for those different costs involved. And those things are factored in. When I mentioned the spread over 5 years of the $30 million, part of it is because when you look at the increased capital cost for Unit 3, you know, that's really what you're faced with.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay.
I think that the commission looks forward to having a work session.
Yeah, I mentioned October 10th. Admittedly, you know, on our end, that's a convenient date, but you know, there's a lot of people are hurting to get together. So I wanted to start somewhere,
Right.
And if you guys could get back to us, so that I feel that for the sake of continuity, we should do it before November, because then, you know, you have people who are involved all the way through that at least can say, well, I remember something from last year when you said this. So I think that would be, you know, imperative, you know, very helpful to do.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Okay, we come to our second presentation of the evening. That would be the Marquette Area Wastewater Treatment Advisory Board. We have Chairman Kirk Page here, who is going to give us the presentation. Kirk?
Thank you. Good, it's working. Appreciate the opportunity to briefly speak about the wastewater treatment plant, which, of course, is a very important part of city operations, as well as Marquette Township and Chocolate Township. Let's see. The advisory board is made up of 5 members. There are 3 from the city of Marquette and 1 each from Marquette Township and Chocolate Township. And then each member, I believe, has or can have an alternate. We meet the third Thursday of each month at the treatment plant at 1:30 p.m. So the meetings are open public meetings. Rarely does anyone show up. Occasionally a student might show up, but certainly everyone is encouraged to come down. And also, I would imagine that anybody could, if they wanted like a tour of the plant, you could just call ahead and make arrangements with Mr. Goodman. Be happy to do that, which would actually probably be way more interesting than attending a meeting. The Marquette Area Wastewater Treatment Advisory Board was established by an intergovernmental agreement in 1977 in accordance with state public acts. And under that agreement, the city of Marquette serves as the contract operator of the facility. And the board oversees the operation of the facility under the provisions of the agreement. And some of our responsibilities are to recommend rules and regulations regarding facility operations, allocate and assign fixed demand costs, and those costs are based on ownership. City of Marquette owns 85%, Marquette Township 10%, and Chocolate Township 5%. And also allocate and assign operation and maintenance costs. And those costs are based on basically the measured flow coming into the plant. And we also make recommendations to the city commission regarding the proposed operating budget for the facility. A little bit of history. The first plant was constructed in 1951. And planning for that had been going on for about 10 years. The secondary treatment upgrade occurred in 1978. And then in 2008, there was a major redesign and construction. Here's a historic photograph from 1938, which is before there was any sort of treatment. It's kind of hard to see, but it's identified there in the lower harbor. There's a raw sewage flume coming out of the discharge point. Here's an example of what the treatment looks like. Prior to, on the left, you got prior to 1953, there was no treatment. And then before 1978, you had primary treatment only. And then from 1978 till now, we have secondary treatment. So you can see this is actual samples of the effluent. This is kind of a diagram of the treatment process. We've got raw wastewater coming in from the collection system. It goes through a screen system which removes the grit. The grit goes to the landfill. From there it goes to primary clarifiers. Discharge from that goes to biological phosphorus removal. From there it goes into aeration basins. And then from there it goes into secondary clarifiers. Maybe I'll slow down here a minute. And then disinfection prior to discharge to the Carp River, which discharges into Lake Superior. And then you've also got return activated sludge going back from the secondary clarifiers back over to the original phosphorus removal. Goes out of there again to the basin. And there's a waste activated sludge that's also sometimes sidetracked. And the primary sludge goes into the digesters. And this is an old site. It says that it goes to a mine reclamation site. I think now it goes mainly to farm sites primarily, and probably still also some with at the mine as well. So some of the things we've done in the past few years is we've maintained sustainable regulatory compliance, also maintained stable rates, reduced biosolids disposal cost, and stabilized the process control for DEQ compliance, formalized standard operational procedures, developed formal grease trap inspection and enforcement program with the neighboring townships, and negotiated a MDEQ 5-year discharge permit, which should be received in the near future. Some of our goals are to develop, continue to develop a long-term biosolids management plan and continue to reduce handling costs and improve efficiency. Pursue more land application sites such as brownfield, agricultural land, and possibly a biosolids partnership with Marquette County Landfill Authority. Continue to maintain stable rates for the wastewater services, seek additional grant funding opportunities. Continue the development of the formal asset management plan, which I believe is currently in process with the assistance of a grant. To reinstate payments into the Reserve Replacement Fund. We have had several projects over the years. I believe the most recent one was sludge storage area that we paid for out of without borrowing money. Also implement the new Johnson Control Energy Savings Efficiency Performance Contract, and finalize the sale of plant capacity to Chocolate Township. Chocolate Township has a major development that's most likely going to be occurring. Tribal enterprise, and the board agreed to reallocate the ownership of the plant. They're requesting an additional 2%. So we agreed to that. And then also evaluate the acceptance of septage and leachate. The Johnson Control projects, which I understand the contract was recently signed, at the wastewater plant is going to involve a few things, digester gas to energy, fuse system, which I believe is final effluent water reuse instead of, using drinking water. We're using effluent. Filtrate pumps, solids handling study, and HVAC and other improvements. We did get a presentation 2 or 3 months ago from Johnson, and it was still in the, I believe, still in, not the final plan yet, but I believe its cost is going to be in the neighborhood of $3.2 million. And some of the issues, and these are not like hard issues, they're just things that we constantly try to do, is improvement of shared services and make sure that we have ordinance compatibility of the 3 owner communities, and also continue to make improvements in plant security. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay, Kirk, thank you. Commissioners, questions? See, Commissioner Baldini?
Kurt, thank you for your presentation. You're one of those organizations and agencies in the community that without you, we'd all be in great trouble. And
well, yeah,
and it runs very efficiently.
And the staff obviously is.
Pardon me?
The staff deserves credit for that, but
yeah, and thank you. But the so the deal with Chalk Lake Township is not finalized yet. So the figures up there for ownership represent.
Right. Well, it's finalized in the term of we agreed to do it
Yeah.
at such time that they actually construct and connect. So.
Okay, so fine. That's 2%.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that will not tax the system. Obviously, you've got capacity.
Right. Yeah, we have capacity, and there has been development of of all 3 communities, but coupled with that development, there's been declining water use. So basically, we're pretty much maintaining status quo through growth. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Technical question. I should go out and do the tour and find out for myself. But the effluent that comes out of your plant into the Carp River, it goes through a disinfection process. Is it sterile when it comes out? Bacteriologically non-active?
I'm going to say basically whatever's left is pretty much killed by sodium hypochlorite.
It seems a little distasteful.
I mean, it's not something that you want to drink, but
that was my next question.
Right.
I didn't. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
it's not drinking water.
So it needs to be processed
pretty
by
close.
Mother Nature, one for the final round before we drink it.
Right.
A mile away.
Right.
From the carp.
Well, the currents generally flow in the opposite direction, so.
Oh, that was foresight. Okay.
It's heading
good.
towards Munising.
We don't say that in a public meeting. Thank you.
Commissioner Frazier.
The company I worked for was involved with the reconstruction back in the day, and it was quite the reconstruction. I remember it was a lot of building, a lot of concrete, everything was going up, and it's quite the interesting place to work around. We all put our nose pins on if we had delivered mud there. But Mr. Goodman said during our budget session that you're looking at the possibility of allowing pump out trucks to go in there. I mean, obviously the city has more and more festivals going on at Madison Park, and they're generating a lot of, pump out waste with all the portable units. And he said they're looking at possibly adding more ability to allow one of those trucks to go in there and pump out. Is that something you guys might want to look at or something? Just maybe Kirk could touch on it or something like that. But
yeah, well, I think we are, but basically we just need a new dumping site, basically, which I believe is probably going to be at the what's the name of the place? The farm? Flink? Flack? Flink? There was a site at the old Public Works site, which is going to be a hospital site, so we don't want to be dumping it there anymore.
Okay, Kirk, we thank you very much for coming and presenting the fact that we don't hear much about the plant tells us it's being run right.
Right, yeah.
And, to commend the staff, they are apparently doing a very good
Right.
job. So we appreciate all you do.
Sure. I just want to make one final comment. It was mentioned the difficulty of the construction. It is, if you notice the process diagram there, I mean, you've got mechanical processes going on, chemical process, and then the big one, of course, the main workhorse is the biological process. So under that construction project, the staff kept the plant operating, and complied with all the requirements, which was quite a feat. So hats off to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we come to our first public comment of the evening. Public comments when residents, citizens may address the commission. You have 3 minutes. We need your name, address, home address, city or township. Again, you have 3 minutes. You can speak to us, or you can reserve time to speak on a business item coming up. We're going to open public comment at the front podium. Does anybody wish to address the commission at this time?
Hello. I'm Sue Hewitt, and I live at 701 West Magnetic. It's right on the corner of 7th and Magnetic.
Here in Marquette, right, Sue?
Here in Marquette, yep. And why my husband and I are here is we learned about the removal of the stoplight. Well, there's 2 stoplights, one on the next street on College. At the the stoplight we're concerned with is the one at the intersection of 7th and Magnetic. And we have some concerns about removal of that stop sign, and starting out with north-south traffic or south-north traffic from Washington to 7th. I don't know if you've noticed it, but we've lived there for many years on 7th Street there, and it's very fast. And numerous people are going very fast. And also, it's heavily numbered, and Margaret Turner also, we live on a corner, Margaret Turner lives on a corner, and Joni Schillinger lives on the other corner. But some of you may have seen this. Margaret dropped it off to me. I think it's 3 years ago when we were talking about the helicopter site being located right across the street from us. Margaret sat in her window, and Margaret was a nurse at the hospital. She put tick marks very neatly, and sat, I believe, from somewhere around 6:30 in the morning till 9:30 in the morning. And I just saw in her handwriting here, she counted 1,145 cars. And that was in the summertime. That was even before northern traffic is there. So if you were going to extrapolate that, there would be thousands of cars going by. I'm pretty sure I'm not sure about this, but I think she was counting people crossing the corner from both directions. And she was supposed to be here tonight, but I don't know what happened. But anyway, there's a lot of traffic there. And I know your commissioners have had a professional study done on Marquette streets. And we didn't find out about it until the Mining Journal said, was a week and a half ago or so, it said it studied how to improve traffic flow in Marquette, not only on Magnetic or 7th. And just a couple of facts. Not only on 7th Street is it fast and heavy traffic, but on the east-west street, which is Magnetic, it's a school bus route. The bus garage is right down at the end. And we babysit our grandchildren. We have 5, 7, 5, 4, and 2 2-year-olds. I know the buses go by, and I know they're numerous because they stand in the window and watch them every day. So if the stoplight is removed and 2 stoplights are put, one on each
Ms.
corner
Hewitt?
of College and nothing on 7th.
Ms. Hewitt, excuse
Yeah.
me. 3 minutes is up. 3 minutes is up. I know you're not finished, but we can only allow 3 minutes per person,
Okay,
per
I'll let
speaker.
Bob, I'll
Let
give,
Bob finish,
I'll
yes.
give him the torch.
Thank you.
So I stopped for minutes, but you can wing it.
Good evening, I'm Bob Hewitt. I also live at 701 West Magnetic in Marquette. There's a couple of issues right now that I think are making the situation obviously more intense than it normally is, but we fully realize that with the closure of a number of east-west corridors right now, Fair Avenue, Wright Street, we've had increased traffic on Magnetic, of course. 7th Street is 7th Street. I don't know if you've traveled that recently, commissioners, no, Chief. I don't know what the situation is with the traffic control on that street, but it is an extremely busy street. Traffic is very fast. Yeah, and again, I don't know how you control that, but the light is one way to control that. If we try to get out of our driveway and go north, it's a project. It takes a long time, sometimes 2 or 3 lights to get over just to pull out of my driveway. My driveway is on 7th, I might add. If I want to go somewhere, I usually have to back out and go south, which is okay, I guess. I can go around the block. I'm not too concerned about that. But, there's a lot of truck traffic right now between the construction at Northern, cement trucks, food trucks going to the hospital. Now, we fully realize that some of this is going to change when the hospital does its move, and or makes its move, I should say. And obviously, I think when the east-west corridors get situated with the roundabouts and so forth, I think that's going to help significantly on Magnetic Street as well, because I think the traffic is pretty busy on there right now too. And that they allow, not in front of our house, there's no parking anywhere by our house, but up the street, there's parking on both sides of the street, and it's usually somebody has to stop, wait for the other person to come through and so forth. So it's an extremely busy corner, and I have concerns about, we have a number of accidents during the year there, which I think you could probably see in the police records and so forth. So I'm greatly concerned about the removal of this light, at least until the hospital is gone. And so that being said, I wish you'd consider not removing that light at this particular time. And maybe never, but I understand, as Sue said, about the traffic flow study that was done and so forth. But I haven't seen any traffic counters out there. I don't know what they did in terms of numbers of cars, but there's an awful lot of cars in that street. It's very busy. And that being said, I don't have a whole lot more to say other than thanks to the commissioners I talked to on the phone. I appreciate your time and calling me back and give me the opportunity to speak my mind about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Frank Jeff Verito to speak on item 10. These are my opinions. August 28th, the DDA director spoke to a hearing and public comment. Neither time was she asked to provide a physical address, but only who she was. Why was she handled differently than everyone else? The next man up was reminded to give his address. Ms. Reynolds again called the chair by his first name without correction. The chair continues to handle people by who's who. In fact, he has a separate set of rules for me. Very dishonorable. Mr. Pallor dazzled us with his English skills during the hospital amendments discussion, saying unforeseen means you can't see it, which no one will refute. However, he used this definition to discredit comments that clearly stated why the unforeseen items were, in fact, foreseeable. The Barriga-McClellan intersection, creek monitoring, and inflationary costs. Mr. Pallord said no one could foresee the state mandates. Any fool knows that roads almost adjacent to a major hospital will be impacted without the state needing to issue a mandate. We needed to incorporate these items into the negotiating process. The same philosophy dictated our obvious need to monitor Whetstone Creek, but our board members look upon the environment as if it's theirs to fool with without consequence. Anyone serving in a developmental or municipal capacity knows the need to incorporate such monitoring into the negotiating process. Mr. Baldini called the cleat monitoring a game, as though it's a mere formality of little importance. The mentality this board's been endlessly documented as exercising for 20 years. He said it's better to pay than to have long delays, which may be correct, but ignoring my point that it was foreseeable with the expense passed on to the hospital. As for inflationary costs, Mr. Pelord was credited for realizing this would occur even though he wasn't on this board yet. He'd have incorporated this, we assume, yet he seemed to refer to all three items as unanticipated, perhaps to politically pacify past members who were too blind to see the obvious. It's great this board is pursuing negotiations with the hospital to pass on some of those very foreseen costs, but that doesn't explain why our members act as if they were born yesterday. Ms. Compenzi's reminder about the salt barn is a great example. How couldn't we know we need a salt barn? And she said, we didn't negotiate a very good deal for the taxpayers going into this, end quote. What's Mr. Pelord's response to that? Finally, the chair was determined to ruin the south entrance to town by encouraging a development east of US 41 on a site that was illegally clear-cut a few years ago. The culprits were fined a mere $500, a fraction of the cost of the stolen timber, and the chair hopes to reward him? Tax revenues promised in the past from such developments haven't enhanced our quality of life. Our level of service, though good, is no better whatsoever.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Seeing none, we're going to close public comment. We're going to move to the consent agenda. Commissioners, do I have a motion? Commissioner Frazier,
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
is there a second? Commissioner Plord,
Second.
comments?
There's
A little unusual.
lot of stuff in the consent agenda, some stuff for helping the YMCA and local trail network is gonna have a little office in there, which is gonna be good for tourism. Let people know how to explore the trails. I think it's a good thing for everything.
Commissioner Plord,
Also, we should note that the telephone lease extension is going to actually save us money overall, a fairly significant amount of money, really, when you look at the telephone equipment that we have and that we need to replace. So that's a good thing, and I commend the city for that. Also, the purchase of election equipment, it's just the nature of the beast. It's something that we have to do to keep moving forward with it, to make sure that we're up to date with election equipment.
thank you. City Clerk, you want to add a little bit to that?
Sure, do you want me up or here's fine?
Right from right there.
Sure, the election equipment that we've received that's new equipment was through Help America Vote Act funds and State of Michigan funds. We received 7 units, so what we're doing is providing for backup units, and then in 2018 to change our system of counting the absentee ballots in the precinct to going to a counting board, which is much more efficient.
Good, thank you. Okay, Commissioners, it's been moved and second. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? That carries 5-0. Tonight we have 2 items on new business. The first item is the First Amendment to the reimbursement agreement, Duke Life Point Marquette General Replacement Hospital. City Clerk, if you could give us the background on that, please.
Thank you, sir. Background. The original brownfield plan for the DLP Marquette General Hospital was approved in October 2014 for redevelopment of the former Roundhouse property, including site preparation and infrastructure improvement by DLP, as well as road improvements and relocation of the Municipal Service Center by the city in cooperation with the Marquette Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, MBRA. Subsequently, an amended brownfield plan for this project was approved by the City Commission on August 28, 2017. For brownfield projects, development and reimbursement agreements are entered into to describe the terms of the tax capture and reimbursement to the developer by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority and municipality. The original reimbursement agreement for the DLP Marquette General Hospital Replacement Hospital project was approved by the City Commission on December 15, 2014. The city is a party to the reimbursement agreement, since brownfield tax increment financing revenues would reimburse the bond payments for public infrastructure. Duke Life Point Marquette General Hospital is a signatory to assure the financial obligations for bond payments. Recently, DLP, the developer, has determined it is unlikely they will require the entire $10 million originally earmarked for the reimbursement of developer eligible activities as described in the original reimbursement agreement and brownfield plan. At this time, the parties wish to execute the attached First Amendment to reimbursement agreement for the DLP Marquette General Replacement Hospital project. By executing this agreement, DLP agrees to forego any unused balance in their allocated funding from brownfield tax capture and allow the city to utilize any remaining tax capture. The attached amendment has been approved by the city attorney and is submitted to the city commission for its consideration. The final execution of the document would also be pending Marquette Brownfield Redevelopment Authority approval at their September 28, 2017 meeting. Fiscal effect, as detailed in the First Amendment to Reimbursement Agreement. Recommendation, approve the attached First Amendment to Reimbursement Agreement for the DLP Marquette General Replacement Hospital project and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement. Alternatives, as determined by the commission.
Thank you. City Manager, would you be so kind as to make it a little more clear for us on what this is?
You want me to just read it again? No. I won't do that. This is actually a good news story. It shows in not so small a way how DLP has been good partners with us in developing this new hospital. What this bottom line basically says is that any unused portion of their allocated $10 million through the Brownfield redevelopment plan, they will transfer to us to help offset our additional costs that we incurred and were presented to you at the last meeting through the Brownfield amendment. If you recall, that amendment was for about $3.2 million, which was going to be funded through the revolving fund, the Brownfield Authority. What we're anticipating Duke Life Point having in the area of $400,000 to $500,000 left over at a minimum, and that they would transfer that to us to help offset that $3.2 million that we might need to access through the revolving fund. So this is something we've been talking to them about for some time. Right from the beginning, they were very willing to look into this avenue as far as helping us with our additional expenses. It's yet to be seen whether they will actually have money left over. However, every indication so far is that they will.
Thank you. That helps. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Plord?
I move that we approve the attached First Amendment to reimbursement agreement for the Duke Life Point Marquette General Replacement Hospital project and authorize the mayor and the clerk to sign the agreement.
Is there support? Commissioner Frazier?
Support.
Any comments? Commissioner Plord?
I think the city manager has done a great job of explaining just pretty much what this is.
Thank you. Commissioner Frazier?
I think everything's going good. I think they're under budget, so I think that's good. The city will get some extra money, and the river that everybody's talked about that we incurred some extra costs on it that they will help us pay for was something that was buried for a long time. The city unearthed it, so I don't know why some people comment that the city doesn't care about nature. It was a river that was hidden for a long time, and then the city unearthed it and allowed it to flow. So I think that's one good thing for the city and be a nice little area for the people that stay at the hospital to go see.
Thank you. Okay, no further comments, questions? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? That carries 5-0. Our second and last new business item is extended park hours for the dark sky viewing. City Clerk, could we have the background on that, please?
Thank you, sir. Background. All hours in city parks are currently 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. The Marquette Astronomical Society has requested the City Commission consider approving a trial period for a dark sky park at Presque Isle Park. The trial period would involve extending the park hours for the southwest portion of Presque Isle Park to 1 a.m. on every Friday and Saturday night through the month of October 2017. On these nights, 2 gates for the drive around the island, one at the gazebo and one at the pavilion, would be locked at 11 p.m., and the area beyond the gates closed. Public would be allowed to drive to the pavilion and view a night sky from that area. Staff has worked with the Marquette Astronomical Society to reach this compromise. Marquette Astronomical Society has presented this trial period proposal to the Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee and Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, who both unanimously recommend the proposal for commission consideration. The Marquette Police Department has agreed to monitor the park during the trial period. Fiscal effect: no city funds will be incurred with the approval of this item. Recommendation: approve the proposal for allowing limited access to the southwest area of Presque Isle Park until 1 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays now through the month of October for the purpose of night sky viewing, and authorize the city manager to extend the park hours to that area for the duration of the period. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Mr. Verito, you wish to speak to this item?
Frank Jeff Verito, these are my opinions. Thank you to the Marquette Astronomical Society for their visionary idea of designating a dark sky for those among us who realize that the black of night is as gorgeous as any time of day. The supplement reads of a compromise that was reached, assumingly to account for safety, park security, and the logistics of facilitating this dark sky opportunity. Mentioned in the supplement is an enclosed map which was not where it belonged in the packet. Not that it was desperately needed, however, it may have helped people who aren't as familiar with the layout of Presque Isle Park. I happened upon the map in the middle of the long hospital amendment document. With all the trouble we've had providing adequate depictions, please use greater care when assembling our packets. Unfortunately, the designated spot near the pavilion is near brighter sections of Presque Isle Park. The almost adjacent power plant is lit up like a city unto itself, compounded by the ore dock operations and the Marquette City halo, which lights up the dark sky a lot more at the pavilion than if Sunset Point was the chosen spot. Yes, Sunset Point might pose a greater potential safety risk and would require that the gates remain open, increasing the potential for vandalism. If there's no practical way to provide us an optimal experience, let the stargazers ascertain from now until October if the pavilion site is worthwhile or if the encroachment of light defeats the purpose. No one will argue that we've made a big step just having this commission even disseminate an item that adds to, rather than lessens, our priceless natural experience of living in Marquette.
Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Baldini.
I move that we approve the proposal for allowing public limited access to the southwest area of Presque Isle Park until 1 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays through the month of October 2017 for the purpose of night sky viewing, and authorize the city manager to extend the park hours to that area for the duration of the period, and that further we have a written evaluation provided to the commission later this year.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Comments, any? Commissioner Baldini. Well, I really want to thank the people who worked on this, because we all know that there was a great deal of discussion and concern, and I know some of the people in the committee maybe, but the concern on the part of the city about the park and the liability and things of that nature. But it is a great thing to have for the city, and I'm glad to see that we've come to some resolution and that we'll have some time to work on this now and probably to evaluate it and see where we go with it for next year. And so I'm looking forward to it, and I'm glad that we have it, and I want to thank the committee, and I think, John, you worked on it, for coming together with this proposal for now. So I think we still have a little bit of fall and summer left before we have some snow, so thank you.
Commissioner Frazier.
You're trying to say it's supposed to be white stuff coming soon to town, or what? You know, I think the white stuff may come soon, but I think we'll have some good this is not a place that the city picked out. This is what the people that wanted this dark sky project, this is what they picked. They picked the spot. And I was curious. I said, it sounds like a good idea. So I found out they want to shut the lights off and have everything dark. And I said, oh boy, the island's very dangerous during the day and even more dangerous at night. So then the city came up with this compromise about closing the island, only letting people there at the pavilion. And if it's too dark and it doesn't work out, then maybe it'll close next year. Who knows? But this is not something the city just said, okay, this is where you wanted to have it. We're going to be it here. And I think Chief Revolt and the police department said they're going to have one car there just in case, and just monitoring the situation, just make sure everything's okay. So I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Commissioner Conley.
I'll support this, but I want to remind everyone that there's a really, really, really dark sky just a few miles north at Little Presque.
Commissioner Plord.
I also support this, and thank you to everybody that went together and worked hard on it. But I just want to point out that safety concerns for people on the island are real. There's a lot of cliffs, a lot of different areas. So, you know, we had to be very, very careful as to how we did this, but I think it's a great start. And I want to see also how it's going to turn out in the end. I think it's going to turn out very well. And I'm looking forward to seeing it expand. I'd like to see it expand and see how it goes. But I do support it.
Thank you. I hope people realize, yes, the problem was the safety concern. The backside of the island at night is nowhere you want to be wandering around. But this is a positive measure. You actually have, this is good in that you have young adults and adults actually learning something. It's an educational gain, so how can you be against that? We'll find out at the end of October. Okay. Commissioner Baldini.
I think also our minutes should reflect that the Presque Isle Advisory and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board both had presentations and endorsed the proposal.
Yes, they did. All right, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Carries 5-0. We come to our last public comment of the evening. Again, public comments when you may address the commission. You've got 3 minutes. I'm going to open public comment. Anybody wish to address the commission at this time? Anyone?
Frank Giaverato, these are my opinions. Mr. Plord appears to be our most attentive member, and he seems reasonably intelligent, so he can only purposely be misinterpreting my comments in his attempt to mess with my mind, which he's a failure at, along with his insults of my intelligence. This is unless he likes these rebuttals. He has nerve to insult a citizen this way. Rather than repay him his gesture, I'll spare his intelligence and instead focus on his degree of integrity. He boasted that you all come prepared, implying that I don't. This, when my foes, even him I believe, have stated that I do come prepared. Nothing was presented at our August 28th meeting that negated any of my 3 comments. He also ripped me for not attending the budget meetings that 4 members attended all of. Why then did he not rip the 3 members who didn't attend them all? Also, why did he rip me for not attending in supposed response to my 3 August 28th comments, none of which to my knowledge expressed any ideas or figures that would have been presented differently had I attended the budget meetings? My responses to your August 28th hospital amendments, as detailed in tonight's opening comment, had no bearing on the budget meetings. Maybe he'd referred to the $4,500 that was wasted to damage South Park. We could have added that money to the budget for anything, even to feed hungry families. Why would I have needed to attend a budget meeting? I've donated thousands of hours of work here for no pay. How can Mr. Plord expect more of me while he is paid? I've stated several times that because this board is so unresponsive, it's only worthwhile to attend the televised meetings where at least the public can be informed and hear for themselves. They're urged to investigate whose comments are accurate. For example, the old buildings on Lakeshore site are being raised. This after we were promised loft apartments, galleries, and shops in Phase 1, which was the main selling point of a ludicrous project that had no chance of succeeding. 12-story towers approved, scaled down from 15 stories proposed. The former school superintendent's son had become mixed up with a fast talker from Chicago. Those board members brought his fast talk as if they were born yesterday, or was influence the driving factor? We know the answer to that question. Oh yes, and for Mr. Plord's information, I am aware that none of those 7 remain on this board. However, his fast talk is reminiscent of that developer's. His comments roll out nicely, yet there's no substance behind them. Listen to his remarks based upon what the other person said, and it makes no sense. For the umpteenth time, he's urged to mention specific examples of what he's responding to, or to stop uttering nonsense. Stick to reporting baseball scores, which are definitive and plainly written. When he composes his own thoughts, he seems to have a problem.
Anyone else? Would anyone else like to address the commission at this point? Seeing none, we're going to close public comment. We're going to move to comments from the commission. Commissioner Frazier, your lead off.
Well, hopefully the summer's not over yet. Like last year, we had a great fall, so hopefully this fall will be just like last year. It'll be a good, give you a few more summer days in the fall. Also, another committee I'm on, it's a volunteer committee that I got appointed to the city. It's a 911 committee. They're working on this new thing called Smart 911. They're working on passing out to the city. It's for the county 911 office. Something that's adapted in a lot of other communities around the area, a lot of other states. And it's very, very unique. And I've talked to several people, and they say it's a great idea because people that have highly medical problems, your information is listed. It'll help our police department, help our fire department. If you call 911, all your information comes up instead of just having your phone number and your name. It all comes up. So hopefully the committee will be in, unless the commissioners will be in Holland for a meeting, but the committee's going to vote on it this week, and hopefully they will pass it, and it's all paid for, and it's going to pay in everybody's pocket. It's supposed to come out of the state money. It's already paid for, so hopefully it goes through, and we'll be one of the major cities that has the smart 911 system.
Thank you, Commissioner Baldini.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple of things. First, this Sunday at from 3 to 5, there is a fundraiser for Phil Niemisto's statue at the Delph. It's really going to be maybe our first public art in a while, and they're raising money, and they're being quite successful, but they need some more additional funds. So that's this Sunday from 3 to 5. Also, this past weekend, we had the Beer Fest. The weather was nice, so there was I hope very little damage done to the park, and be interesting to see the economic impact. We really do have to start tabulating figures on that, because one guy was telling me, he said, boy, I was lucky I was able to get a room for 2 or 3 nights for only $240 a night. And other people said, no, we're not even in town. We had to leave because there were no rooms. So it has quite an impact. And the third thing I want to address is not anything that we directly have any impact on, but I believe it is a concern for the city. Delta Airline has announced that they're changing their flights for October, or I think November, and October, November, December. And there will be one flight from Detroit in the afternoon that'll get here at 5 o'clock and turn around and go back. And then there will be a flight leaving Marquette for Minneapolis at 7 a.m. And then if you want to fly to Detroit that morning, you can fly out of Minneapolis. And this is, I'm not getting the facts, but this Friday, we're having a meeting with the Lake Superior Community Partnership Transportation Task Force, of which I'm on, and we hope to get the facts. But part of it is they need their airplanes, and because we are the only airport in the UP that is not an essential air service airport, they probably can do these things. We fought to get an extra flight put on to Minneapolis. We worked at it as a community. The city, I think we probably supported, sent a letter, the partnership, the county, and we got that. Well, now we're finding we're losing it on the other end. They say temporary. Let's hope it's temporary. But our numbers are good. They will probably say, gee, there was a dip in numbers. But overall, our numbers have been good. And because Marquette does not receive a subsidy for the essential air service, it really does impact us negatively. It's supposed to work the other way around, but it seems to be having the other consequence. So I think it's something that we as a community that's growing, we want to make sure we have accessible air service. American will still have its flight to Chicago and returning that night. But Delta is reducing their access for at least for 3 months. So thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Commissioner Plord.
I want to thank Mr. Verito for expressing publicly that I am no fool. Not having the ability to see into the future. I also want to compliment Mr. Verito on his ability and his continued accomplishment in this area, being able to see into the future and apparently being able to see into people's minds as well. I'm impressed by that. You continue to be very, very good at what you do. So thank you. Also, the Beer Fest, as Mayor Pro Tem Baldini mentioned, I was there myself this year. I wanted to see how it was going to run. I talked to the police department. I talked to several people there, and got a good all-around look at the whole operation myself, and it was fabulous. It was a great time. People had the music was fantastic. There was just no problems whatsoever. And I want to commend the Brewers Guild, the local Brewers Guild as well. But the Michigan Brewers Guild last year said they would take care of any of the issues that people consider to be a problem, and they did. My faith in them never wavered, ever. It was a great event for the city. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Conley.
Nothing further.
Well, thank you. Just a couple things. Again, I'm going to repeat that we have an electronic waste pickup Tuesday, the 19th, coming up from 3 to 7 at Lakeview Arena. We have a work session scheduled on the 20th at 4 p.m. Concerning the lighthouse. I believe we meet at that property. And lastly, on a happy note to our Chief Financial Officer, Gary Simpson, it's that time of the year when Marquette City residents, their property taxes are due on the 14th, which is this Thursday. We'd appreciate if you got those in. And thank you. City Manager.
You ought to see how busy this building is close to tax time. It's a wonderful thing to behold. Yes, the Beer Fest went very well. All reports were good. Police Department and Parks Services. Regarding the stoplight at 7th and Magnetic, we are planning on holding off on removing that light for at least 6 to 8 months, at least at this time. We're going to try to coincide it or have it occur closer to the time that the hospital makes more of a transition. And we'll continue to monitor that intersection. I will schedule a BLP work session. The 10th, we have a meeting already, a commission meeting. However, if you want to meet at 4 o'clock or something of that nature, we can do that or try to do that before the regular meeting, but I'll have staff take a look at scheduling that. And lastly, my community office hours are this Wednesday, 10 a.m. to noon at the Peter White Public Library for anybody who's interested. And that's all I have.
We are adjourned.